Have you ever felt pain without a reason? Fear without memory? A strange attraction to certain people, places, or suffering? Even though this is your first time living this life? Some of you feel old even when you are young. Some of you feel like you've been here before. Some of you carry guilt, wisdom, anger, or compassion that this lifetime cannot explain. According to Buddhism, this is not imagination. This is karma remembering itself. Buddhism teaches that life does not begin at birth, and it does not end at death. We are moving through cycles of rebirth, carrying unfinished lessons, debts, wounds, and wisdom from lives we no longer remember consciously, but our soul never forgets. And here is the part most people don't know. The last digit of your birth year is believed to reflect the dominant karmic imprint of your previous life. The role you played, the lessons you failed or mastered, and the energy you brought into this lifetime. This is not superstition. This is symbolic karmic mapping, a way ancient teachings helped humans understand why they are the way they are. In this video, I will reveal what your birth year's last digit says about who you were in your past life, what karma followed you here, what lesson your soul must complete now. But be warned, some truths may feel uncomfortably accurate. If you believe life has meaning beyond money, status, and survival, if you feel your soul is older than your body, if you are ready to understand why you suffer the way you do, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay till the end, because the last digits reveal the deepest karmic truths. Now, look at the last digit of your birth year and listen carefully. Last digit, 0 or 1, the spiritual seeker. If the last digit of your birth year is 0 or 1, your soul does not feel new. It feels tired, aware, and strangely detached even when life around you is loud, colorful, and busy. In your past life, you were not chasing status, wealth, or attention. You were a monk, a hermit, a healer, or a truth seeker, someone who stepped away from the noise of the world, either by choice or by force. According to Buddhist understanding, this creates renunciation karma, a deep imprint of withdrawal from worldly illusion. Your soul learned silence before it learned comfort, and that is why, in this life, you feel different in ways you cannot fully explain. You may notice that solitude calms you in a way it doesn't calm others. While people panic in silence, you breathe easier. While others crave crowds, parties, endless talking, and validation, your nervous system relaxes only when things are quiet. Noise doesn't excite you, it drains you. You walk into loud rooms and feel tired instantly, even if nothing bad is happening. You sit among people and still feel alone, not because you hate them, but because your soul is not hungry for stimulation. This is not antisocial behavior. This is memory. In real life, you may have experienced this as a child who preferred sitting alone, staring out of windows, asking strange questions that adults couldn't answer. Questions like, why are we here? Why do people hurt each other? Why does happiness feel temporary? While other children were playing, you were observing. As you grew older, this didn't disappear, it intensified. You question existence deeply, not as a hobby, but as a burden. You don't just live life, you watch it. You analyze it. You feel it collapsing and rebuilding inside you every day. You see patterns in people that others miss. You sense fake smiles, hidden pain, and unspoken truths without trying. This is why casual conversations exhaust you. Small talk feels empty. Surface-level relationships feel unbearable. Your suffering doesn't come from trauma alone. It comes from knowing too much and belonging nowhere. You may have tried to live a normal life, career, relationships, social expectations, but something always felt off. Even when things go right, you feel a quiet dissatisfaction, as if your soul is whispering, "This isn't why I came back." In Buddhism, this happens when a soul that once sought liberation is reborn into a world still chasing illusion. The soul remembers peace, but the body is trapped in noise. Real-life example. You might have noticed that success doesn't excite you the way it excites others. Achievements feel hollow after a moment. Praise feels awkward. You may even feel guilt for wanting less money, less drama, less attachment, while the world screams for more. People may call you lazy, cold, distant, or unambitious. But they don't know that you already lived a life where ambition was burned away. Yet here is the most important truth and the most painful one. Your lesson in this life is not to escape again. In your past life, you mastered detachment, but you may have avoided connection. You learned how to let go of the world, but not how to love it without being consumed by it. So you return not to suffer, but to integrate. This time, your soul must learn balance, to stay awake without isolating, to be wise without becoming distant, to touch the world without dissolving into it. You are not meant to disappear into mountains again. You are meant to bring stillness into chaos. That is why life keeps placing you among people, responsibilities, and emotions you didn't ask for. Not to punish you, but to teach you how to remain centered while being present. Your pain is not a mistake. Your loneliness is not a flaw. Your depth is not an accident. You are here to prove that enlightenment does not require abandonment of life only, awareness within it. And when you finally stop fighting who you are, when you stop forcing yourself to be loud, fast, and hungry like the world, you will realize something terrifying and beautiful. You were never lost. You were remembering. Last digit, 2 or 3. The emotional servant. If the last digit of your birth year is 2 or 3, your soul is not weak. It is overtrained in caring. In your past life, you lived as someone who served. Not occasionally, but constantly. You were a caretaker, a companion, a supporter, a silent pillar behind someone else's survival. You carried emotional weight that was never meant to be yours alone. According to Buddhist understanding, this creates attachment karma, the karmic residue of loving too much, staying too long, and disappearing for the sake of others. You didn't abandon people in that life. You abandoned yourself, and that pattern followed you here. In this life, you feel love more intensely than most. When you care completely. When you commit with your entire nervous system. You don't half listen, half love, or half show up. You notice small changes in tone, pauses in messages, sadness hiding behind smiles. You feel what others feel, sometimes even before they do. But here's the pain. You often feel unseen, unprotected, and emotionally exhausted. In real life, this shows up early. As a child, you may have been the understanding one, the one who didn't complain, the one who adjusted. Maybe you grew up sensing that your emotional needs were secondary, so you learned to minimize them. You became mature too early, not because you wanted to, but because someone needed you to be strong. As you grew older, the pattern didn't change. It just changed faces. You overgive. You over-explain. You over-forgive. You stay even when it hurts, convincing yourself that love means endurance. You make excuses for people who would never make excuses for you. And somehow, you keep attracting those who take more than they give. People who lean on you emotionally but disappear when you need support. People who call you kind, pure, or rare, yet still drain you dry. People who love how you make them feel but never ask how you feel. This is not coincidence. This is karma repeating itself until it is understood. Buddhism teaches that attachment is not just clinging to people, it is clinging to the idea that your worth comes from being needed. Your soul learned in a past life that love equals sacrifice, that staying equals loyalty, that leaving equals betrayal. So in this life, you feel guilty when you choose yourself. You feel selfish for wanting rest. You feel cruel for setting boundaries, even when you are the one bleeding. Real life example. You may have noticed how easily people open up to you. Strangers tell you their secrets. Friends trauma dump without asking. Partners rely on you emotionally, but struggle to show up when you're breaking down. And when you finally reach your limit, people are surprised. Because they are used to you absorbing pain quietly. Your suffering isn't because you love wrong. It's because you were taught that love means self-erasure. But here is the lesson your soul returned to learn. This lifetime is not about serving others at the cost of your existence. It is about learning boundaries without guilt. You are not meant to become cold. You are meant to become selective. Buddhism does not teach detachment as abandonment. It teaches non-attachment, which means loving without losing yourself, giving without bleeding, caring without chaining your worth to someone else's survival. Your soul must now unlearn the belief that you must earn love by suffering. You are allowed to say no without explaining. You are allowed to leave without apologizing. You are allowed to protect your energy, even if others call it selfish. And yes, this will feel terrifying at first, because for the emotional servant, boundaries feel like betrayal. But they are not. They are liberation. When you finally stop overgiving, when you stop chasing emotional reciprocity from people incapable of it, when you stop mistaking endurance for love, you will feel something unfamiliar: relief. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring for yourself. And that is how this karmic cycle ends. Last digit, 4 or 5. The struggler. If the last digit of your birth year is 4 or 5, your soul did not come into this life gently. It came braced for impact. From a very early age, you may have felt as if life was something to survive rather than enjoy. Even when nothing is technically wrong, your body remains alert, watching, calculating, preparing. This is not negativity. This is memory. In a past life, you lived under constant instability. War, poverty, displacement, hunger, sudden loss, or long periods of fear shaped your existence. You didn't have the luxury of dreaming. You had to adapt, endure, and stay alive. Buddhism teaches that experiences soaked in fear do not disappear at death. They return as mental formations, deep subconscious patterns carried into the next life. That is why, in this life, you are restless, even in safe rooms. You may notice that your mind rarely rests. While others relax, you scan for danger. While others celebrate, you quietly think about what could go wrong. You plan backup plans for your backup plans. You don't trust calm because calm never lasted before. Real life example. You finally achieve stability, a job, a home, a relationship, yet instead of peace, anxiety grows. You start anticipating loss. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You emotionally prepare yourself for pain that hasn't arrived. People tell you, relax, everything is fine. But your nervous system doesn't believe them. Because in your past life, everything was fine, until it wasn't. You may also struggle with sudden mood shifts. One moment you feel hopeful. The next moment, exhausted and overwhelmed. You feel like you're always almost there, but never safe enough to rest. Even happiness feels fragile, like glass that could shatter at any moment. This is the struggler's curse. In daily life, this often shows up as overworking, hyper-independence, and difficulty asking for help. You learned long before this lifetime that relying on others was dangerous, so you carry everything alone. You push through pain silently. You survive, even when surviving costs you your peace. People may admire your strength. They don't see the tension behind it. Buddhism explains this as unresolved fear energy moving forward through rebirth. Fear that was once necessary for survival becomes unnecessary suffering when the danger is gone, but the body doesn't know that yet. This is why you feel anxious even when nothing is chasing you. You may also notice that chaos feels strangely familiar. When life becomes calm, you feel uncomfortable, almost bored or uneasy. Your mind looks for problems because peace feels unnatural. Your soul learned order inside disorder, not serenity. But here is the truth your soul returned to learn. You no longer have to earn safety through suffering. This life is not another battlefield. It is a recovery room. Your task is not to fight harder. It is to teach your nervous system that it is allowed to rest, to experience peace without waiting for it to be destroyed, to sit in silence without scanning for threat. This is incredibly difficult for you because peace feels like a trap. Yet Buddhism teaches that liberation comes when the mind stops reliving threats that no longer exist, when awareness replaces fear, when the body learns that the present moment is not the past. Real-life transformation begins when you stop asking, "What could go wrong?" and start asking, "What if nothing does?" You are not weak for being anxious. You are not broken for being alert. You are conditioned, and conditioning can be healed. When you slowly allow yourself to rest without guilt, when you stop measuring your worth by endurance, when you realize that chaos is not home, just memory, something profound happens. Your soul exhales for the first time in lifetimes. And that is how the struggler becomes the survivor who finally learns peace. Last digit, 6 or 7. The authority or leader. If the last digit of your birth year is 6 or 7, your soul remembers power. Not symbolic power, real power. The kind that shapes lives, decides outcomes, and leaves consequences long after words are spoken. In a past life, you were not invisible. You were a leader, ruler, officer, elder, judge, or authority figure. Others listened when you spoke. Others waited for your decisions. You carried responsibility, sometimes honorably, sometimes harshly. Buddhism teaches that power leaves a deep karmic imprint because every act of control creates ripples across many lives. That is why, in this life, control feels personal. You may notice a strong inner drive to lead, to manage, to correct, or to take charge even when you don't consciously want to. Disorder irritates you. Inefficiency frustrates you. You struggle when things feel out of your hands. Your mind naturally looks for structure, hierarchy, and direction. But here is the hidden wound. Along with authority came fear. Fear of losing respect. Fear of being challenged. Fear of becoming powerless again. In real life, this may show up as ego clashes, stubbornness, or an intense need to be right. You may struggle with criticism, even mild feedback feels like a threat. When someone questions you, your body reacts before your mind can explain why. This is not arrogance alone, it is memory. In your past life, losing authority may have meant exile, humiliation, punishment, or death. So in this life, you guard your position fiercely. You may also notice a strange contradiction within yourself. On one hand, you want to lead, guide, protect, and provide. On the other hand, you resist vulnerability. You don't like depending on others. You rarely ask for help. You feel safest when you are the one in control. Real-life example. You may naturally become the responsible one in families, workplaces, or relationships. People rely on you. People expect strength from you. But when you are tired, confused, or breaking down, there is often no one you trust enough to lean on. So you carry the weight alone, and that weight gets heavy. Buddhism teaches that power karma always returns not to punish, but to refine. A soul that once exercised dominance must now learn compassion without superiority, leadership without fear, authority without ego. That is why, in this life, you may experience situations where your control is challenged. You may be placed under authority figures you dislike. You may feel restricted, underestimated, or powerless at times. These moments feel unbearable because they touch an old wound, the memory of falling from power. But these experiences are not accidents. They are lessons. Your soul is being taught that leadership does not come from force, it comes from presence. That respect does not require fear. That influence does not require control. Another real-life pattern. You may notice that when you lead from ego, things fall apart. Relationships strain. Teams resist. Life pushes back. But when you lead with humility, listening, adjusting, allowing things flow effortlessly, this is karma correcting itself in real time. Your challenge is not to abandon leadership. It is to purify it. Buddhism does not reject power. It warns against attachment to power. You are here to learn that true authority does not dominate, it stabilizes. It does not silence, it understands. It does not crush, it protects. This is why life repeatedly tests you with situations that ask, will you control or will you guide? Will you command or will you serve? Will you protect your ego or the people around you? And here is the hardest truth for the authority soul. You must learn to be human before being powerful, to admit uncertainty without feeling weak, to step back without feeling erased, to allow others to shine without feeling threatened. When you finally release the need to control outcomes, when you stop tying your worth to dominance or recognition, when you lead from calm instead of fear, something ancient inside you softens. You remember that leadership is not about standing above others. It is about standing with them. And that is how power karma dissolves, not through surrender of strength, but through transformation of intention. Last digit, 8 or 9. The Karmic Warrior. If the last digit of your birth year is 8 or 9, your soul did not come here quietly. It arrived charged, restless, and carrying the memory of unfinished wars. In a past life, you lived in conflict. Not metaphorical conflict, real struggle. You fought injustice, defended something sacred, or survived environments where strength was the only language. You may have been a warrior, revolutionary, protector, rebel, or someone who lived constantly at the edge of danger. According to Buddhist understanding, lives shaped by violence, resistance, and unresolved struggle leave behind combat karma energy that does not dissolve at death. It returns as fire. That is why, in this life, your emotions feel intense, fast, and overwhelming. You don't feel lightly, you feel in extremes. Love hits you like a storm. Betrayal burns for years. Anger rises before logic can intervene. When something feels unjust, your body reacts instantly, heart racing, muscles tight, mind sharpening for battle. This is not immaturity. This is memory. Real life example. You may notice that you are deeply affected by global injustice, corruption, cruelty, or oppression. News stories enrage you. Power abuse feels personal. You feel a strong urge to speak out, fight back, or fix what is broken, even when it costs you peace. Others tell you to calm down, but they don't feel what you feel, because your soul remembers what happens when evil goes unchecked. In daily life, this warrior energy can turn inward. You may struggle with sudden anger, impatience, or emotional explosions that surprise even you. One moment you are calm. The next moment something small ignites a fire you cannot easily control. Afterwards, you feel guilt, confusion, or exhaustion, wondering why your reactions feel bigger than the situation. Buddhism explains this as unresolved karmic momentum. The body learned to react instantly to threat. The mind learned that hesitation equals loss. The nervous system still believes it is standing on a battlefield. That is why rest feels difficult. Stillness feels unsafe. Silence feels like vulnerability. You may even create conflict unconsciously, not because you enjoy it, but because chaos feels familiar. Peace feels temporary, like a lie before another attack. So your mind stays sharp, aggressive, ready. Real-life example. You may sabotage calm relationships with intensity. You test people. You push limits. You fight for truth, but sometimes forget tenderness. And when people pull away, you feel abandoned without realizing that your armor scared them. But here is the truth your soul returned to learn. The war is over. This lifetime is not about fighting enemies outside. It is about disarming the enemy within. Buddhism teaches that the greatest battle is not against injustice in the world, but against uncontrolled anger, hatred, and attachment to conflict. A warrior who never learns to put down the sword becomes a prisoner of their own fire. You are not here to destroy. You are here to transform. Your passion is sacred. Your intensity is purposeful, but it must be refined, not unleashed blindly. Your task is to turn rage into clarity, to turn anger into discernment, to turn force into compassion without losing strength. This is difficult because in your past life, softness may have meant death, trust may have meant betrayal, mercy may have been exploited. So your soul hardened. But now, Buddhism asks something radical of you: to be powerful without being violent, to stand for truth without hatred, to protect without destroying yourself. When you begin to slow your reactions, when you breathe through anger instead of obeying it, when you realize that not every injustice requires your blood, something ancient shifts. The warrior does not disappear. The warrior awakens. You stop fighting everyone. You stop fighting life. You stop fighting yourself. And for the first time in lifetimes, your soul experiences something unfamiliar. Peace that does not feel like surrender. That is how karmic war ends. Not with victory, but with consciousness. As we conclude, if this video described you with painful accuracy, if certain words felt less like information and more like memory, if you felt something tighten in your chest, slow your breath, or pull at parts of you that logic cannot explain, then this was not coincidence. it was recognition. Comment, I remember, if you felt seen in ways no one has ever articulated before. Not because your story was told, but because your soul recognized itself. And if you've always felt older than your age, if you've carried emotions, wisdom, fear, or awareness that this lifetime alone cannot justify, if you've looked at the world and thought, I've been here before, then comment, my karma awakens. Because awakening does not begin with answers. It begins with remembrance. Now, pause for a moment. Feel what stirred inside you while watching this. That discomfort, that clarity, that quiet intensity, that is consciousness surfacing. If this message reached you, like this video. Not for the algorithm, but as a signal that awareness matters. Subscribe to this channel if you are ready to explore truths that go deeper than motivation and louder than comfort. And share this video with someone who feels out of place in the world. Someone who knows there is more to life than survival. Because knowledge informs, but awareness liberates. And remember this final truth. You are not here to repeat the cycle. You are here to end it. The moment consciousness begins, karma loosens its grip.